For the month ahead, our community over on Discord is doing a theme of suitcases and scribbles, or effectively a travel-inspired theme in our journals. Rather than making my setup align with airplanes and travel bags, I've taken a slightly different approach. But before we have a look at that, let's have a look at how this month was going. For June in my journal, I went with a somewhat kind of like romantic theme, I guess. I don't really know what it's called, but mainly I just wanted to give this tape its final hurrah before I decluttered it. That one is now gone, I only have a few pieces left, but I did make sure to keep plenty so that I could decorate all of the layouts throughout the month. This spread here was my dashboard for the month, so we have 3 main sections, being a good job me space, where I could write down one small thing that I was kind of proud of myself for doing in that day, or I could feel good about myself because I got something done. We had my working on space, which were for goals and projects that I was working on, and checking them off if they managed to get completely finished. And then down here I had a video release schedule, which I was already kind of tentative about whether I should include it, because technically speaking, I do organize all this information in a digital space over on Notion, but it felt weird not having it in here, so I put it in, told myself I would not be filling in any of the information until I was 100% sure that the video was gonna release on that day, and then literally a day after writing this down, this schedule changed. So you can see I didn't fill it out for the rest of the month. Because I have been migrating my content release organization into a digital space, in that Notion space, I'm finding that I really don't need to have this kind of a summary in my journal. I already put the tasks associated with doing things in my daily logs, but I don't really need this upfront kind of dashboard look of what work is being released. As for the good job me, I still like the idea of this, I just don't think I needed it on a month-long view. Maybe putting it in the weeklies would have been better, but I haven't felt the need to include it again, at least not right now. It might come back one day. And as for a summary of my goals and projects, I do still enjoy having that because it just acts as a reminder of what I'm working on or what I'm trying to focus on when I'm doing goal work. I did enjoy the decoration, I still love layering the elements together, and I also really enjoyed having things decorated kind of at the start of the month, so I really just had to come in with a black pen, and that was all I was using on a day-to-day basis. This mind unwind or brain dump space technically did work, like I have used it. I maybe had a bit too much space, so I probably could have gone a little heavier on the decoration here or limited it to just one page rather than a full spread. So I'm thinking that for the month ahead, I'm going to combine these two together, having the mind unwind and having that working on spot for projects and goals, or like a summary of those. After that though, those are the only real monthly pages I set up, and we're straight on into my weekly setups. One of the things I have been missing in terms of weeklies is a spot to put future events or future tasks, things I don't necessarily want to do on the current day, but maybe 2 or 3 days later. Because of the way I do daily logs, which is very much aligned with the bullet journal method, where you put in the header for the day you're on, or the next day, whichever, you write out all of your tasks, and then once that day is completed, you don't have anything else to add, then you go and put in the header for the next day. Which for me, it was like Monday goes through to here, and then Tuesday is here, that went to there, Wednesday, so on and so forth. Which means that on a Monday, sitting over here, I don't already have a space dedicated to Thursday's tasks, or Friday, or even Wednesday. Because that has been something that hasn't worked so well, I want to tweak my weekly structure so I have a space dedicated to that, or a spot that I can put those tasks that are going to be happening later in the week. I still very much have been enjoying my meal log, or kind of meal plan, given the fact that I do check off when I've eaten these things, or whether I ate them. I also do like my priority space, but I thought it would be good to bring back a routine tracker, especially because with the Change Your Life in 3 Months challenge that I'm going to be doing, I need to be held more accountable to getting those daily actions done, so I figured a routine tracker is something I should probably bring back. You can see we have week 2 here, the daily logs that follow. Week 3, I had a larger priorities list for this space, and I did not use all of it, so maybe not giving myself quite as many lines is probably a good idea, but I am also getting towards the end of a quarter at this point, so I didn't really feel compelled to write as many things down. I'm more so in the mode of getting excited for quarter 3, rather than finishing strong on quarter 2. Also helps that quarter 2 has been kind of a slump period for me, We had not only a slump in my journal, but just a slump in general, so I need to keep that in mind when setting up for next month, or my next cycle. We're not quite finished with this current cycle, so I have a little bit more space. I've got my setup for week 4 that I'm currently in, and then also reset week tasks. So excited for reset week. Of course, I'm still going to be eating in reset week, so I needed to have a meal space here as well, and then I've got a couple of decorated pages after this where I can continue those daily logs. Next month is not getting set up in this journal though. This journal is completely finished, so it's time to scoot that one to the side and bring out my new journal, which is a B6. Getting into a new journal is always exciting, and I feel like this one's even more exciting because of the new size, but that does mean I need to be mindful of how much space I have to do decoration and to include information. Even though I haven't even really started using this journal, I'm already worried about running out of space, because ideally this one is gonna last me for the next 6 months, but it has less pages than the one I just used. And while that one isn't fully used up, it is fairly close to the end, and there was more real estate on the pages. That being said, on this particular page, I do want to have a little bit of extra decoration, mainly because it's just going to be dedicated to the mind unwind. Originally, I was thinking about putting my goals and projects list in here as well, but I'm going to trial not having it in my monthly setup, and we'll see if I miss it. I think sometimes for those sections in our journal that we're possibly just putting in there out of habit, it can be good to do a little experiment and see, will I actually miss it if I don't put it in? That was the experiment that I was initially running with my monthly log, and I certainly haven't missed that one. In fact, I've probably even appreciated not having it, because now I don't feel guilty when I don't use the page. The monthly log and I were very much in that kind of on again, off again relationship, where if it wasn't there, I'd miss it, and then if it was there, I wouldn't even use it. But now as I've committed to not including it, I've essentially regained a spread each month that I can use for something else. I do think that the continuous reflection process that comes with bullet journaling and making sure you're only including things that are going to be helpful for you is one of the reasons why I love and have stuck with the system. Especially after having been in such a bullet journal slump in April, doing a more kind of critical analysis of what is and what isn't working. Am I making my journal performative? What's just here out of habit versus stuff that's actually useful? Those have definitely helped me make a more functional but fulfilling journal setup. In terms of what we're doing on this page though, I decided to go with a travel theme that was a little bit more kind of fantasy or sci-fi travel inspired. It's kind of a little bit of both. The main thing that gave me the fantasy vibes was the ship design that we have in the bottom left corner. That one gave me the idea of like kind of sailing amongst the stars almost, and the paper pack that one comes from is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this setup in terms of the decorative elements, but I've also really been enjoying bringing multiple elements together and doing a kind of collage-y style. Another one of the elements that I thought aligned nicely with the travel theme was the map washi tape. I absolutely love this tape for an easy but decorative background. I find that even though it has writing on it, it does well to kind of blend into the back of a layout, meaning that you're not distracting for any of the information that you're going to put on the page. I also included a couple of other supplies, of course, because I like to bring multiple together to do these kind of collages, and I've listed those in the description box below if you're curious. While this layout is getting set up as part of my pages for next month, I'm actually probably going to use it before the month gets here. That's mainly because I have been very much aiming this year to use mind unwinds or brain dumps as a way to get cool, calm and collected for the period ahead. In this case, I want to use this space to jot down anything and everything I'm thinking about, musing about, potential tasks, thoughts, notes, anything like that, and get them out of my head and captured somewhere that is safer than my brain. Brains are made for having ideas, not for holding them, so I'm giving that job to my journal on this layout. Not everything that I'm going to add to this page will end up getting done throughout the month, but it gives those tasks a safe space to be captured. The time that the layout is going to get the most use is probably during reset week, which by the time this video goes up, we're actually in reset week, so I've probably already started jotting some things down. As for the setup we're doing here though, this one took about 14 minutes from first to final touches, and I'll probably use a timer for a similar amount of time to get in and populate it. I find that sitting down and setting a timer when I'm trying to do my brain dumps holds me accountable to actually doing it, and also means that I don't let the task balloon out to a whole day or afternoon. Flipping on over though, so that we can get into our next spread, one of the things that I'm really excited about for the month ahead is getting started with our 3 months to change your life challenge. If you hadn't heard about that one, it's essentially what it sounds like. We're going to spend the next 3 months working on something that is going to make a positive impact on our lives. And while the actual challenge is just to pick one thing that you think would make a positive impact, I've decided to bite off more than I can chew, and then chew it, by tackling a bunch of different life categories and a bunch of goals. This is essentially a challenge for anybody who's kind of tired of their own BS. They're sick of getting in their own way with things, they're sick of setting goals that they continually say they want to work on and then just not working on them. But given the fact that these are things that we are putting off, I needed to make sure that my journal was going to best help me do them. I wanted to hold me accountable to doing my daily actions and weekly actions. I wanted to document the progress that I'm making throughout the challenge. And of course, I wanted to do all the regular things like keeping me on top of my tasks. For that reason, I'm changing up my weekly dashboard, so not just including a meal log or meal planning space and then my priorities list, but also a general weekly task list so that I can schedule those tasks that need to be done on a day that isn't the current one, and also bringing back a routine or habit tracker. With some of the goals that I have planned for my 3 months Change Your Life challenge, I definitely need to be doing those things every single day, or at least most days, and rather than writing them out every single day on my task list, it just makes more sense to have a tracker for them. The left-hand side of the layout is where I'm putting my typical meal log and my priorities list, and then the right-hand side is where that weekly task list and the routine tracker are going to go. This arrangement was mainly decided upon based on how much horizontal space things needed, so because for the weekly task list and the routines tracker, I need a column for each day of the week, and also for the task, those ones couldn't really be done in 2 columns on the page. The B6 size journal that I'm using is 11 centimeters across, or 22 dot grid boxes, whereas an A5 journal, or at least the A5 journals I typically use, are 26 boxes across, or 13 centimeters. And it's actually quite impressive how much of a difference 2 centimeters can make. But because my real estate on each page is a bit more limited, it was important to go and put those functional elements in first. I wanted to make sure I had space for them before I went and added any decoration. Though decoration is still important, because if I don't like the way my journal looks, I am not going to use it, and then it can't hold me accountable for all the things that I want to do. Because I love a cohesive theme, I'm bringing over all of the same elements that I used on that first page into this one. So using the same decorative paper, using the same washi tape, the same lettering for all of the headers. And although the lettering definitely looks like I smudged it, that's actually part of the font, and kind of why I chose it. I like that it looked a little bit more weathered, a little bit more worn, and I just felt that that fit better with the other decorative elements. Those ones are just printed on a washi or vellum sticker paper, so then they blend nicely into the journal. Although the vellum paper can get a little bit more smudgy with an inkjet printer, I do still prefer printing on that instead of matte white paper. I save my matte white sticker paper for things like book covers in my reading journal. I already know that given the decorative style I'm using this month, it's going to be really important to pre-decorate my layouts, mainly because I'm not going to want to do this day to day and week to week throughout the month, because outside of the sticker headers, the washi tape, and then those little kind of postage stamp stickers, the rest of the elements have to be stuck in, and I'm using a glue stick so that I can get really good coverage of the adhesive. In general, I don't really like working with glue sticks. I find that if they put too much paste down, then the pages start to kind of warp, and that's not really a favorite for me in terms of my journaling. I'm less bothered about it than I used to be, but I'm still bothered by it. I also don't want to have to keep those supplies out for the entire of the month so that I can decorate new pages as I need them. So while I'm just setting up this individual week here, I am going to batch set up the other ones at some point, just so that I can use all of those supplies all at once and then put them all away and tidy up. The problem is going to be predicting how much space I'm going to need between each of the weekly dashboards, but we'll talk more about that in a second. In terms of timing, setting up this weekly layout took about 14.5 minutes, though I do suspect it'll probably take less time with each iteration, mainly as I get used to the layout and structuring it, but I also don't think that spending 14.5 minutes to set up the structure at the start of the week is really too bad. I know some people like to be very brief with their journal setups, just getting in, writing some simple headers, and then getting out, but I like to spend a little bit longer to set up a structure that I know is going to still have appeal to me throughout the week, whether that's because of just like the arrangement of the elements or because of the decorative pieces. But I'd love to know how long you spend setting up your weekly layouts. Let me know in the comments, because it would be cool to compare. Of course, a weekly dashboard is not the only thing that I need for my personal organization. I also need to have space to write in my daily logs, or what effectively end up being my first touch point for any information I want to add to my notebook on a day-to-day basis. Because I want to maximize the amount of writing space I have on this layout, I needed to make sure that the decoration here was going to be pretty minimal and not taking up too much of the dot grid. For that reason, I decided to run a very small piece of washi tape along the top and the bottom of the spread, and then focus the rest of the decoration mainly on corners, either the corners of the spread as a whole or the corners of individual pages. I find that I usually like to write my daily task lists in 2 columns, and while those columns are going to be a little bit narrower than I'm used to given the smaller journal size, I can still usually fit things amongst decoration if I make sure to focus that decoration in particular spots. Given that I've been journaling for a while and also kind of like paid attention to my natural uses of the journal and what my preferences are, it means that I have a better appreciation of where I can put decoration and kind of get away with it, and also how much decoration I can include. That is, how much I can include and still feel like I have ample writing space for the things I want to note down. As mentioned before, I'm definitely going to want to pre-decorate all of my daily log spaces before the week in question, and in particular just doing all of that decoration at once so I don't have to keep all of those supplies out or, re-get them out to do the decoration. Mainly because the idea of using a glue stick multiple times throughout the month is very unappealing to me. But one of the difficulties is predicting how much space I'm going to need, especially because my daily logs just take up as much space as they take up. I put in the header for one day, write out everything I need to across that day, and then once the day is over, put in the header for the next day. Sometimes that means it only takes up a few lines, and sometimes it means it takes up multiple columns. It really just depends on how much I need to write down or how much I want to be getting done. I already predict that I'm going to need more than just one spread for each of the weeks in terms of the daily logging, but I at least want to have a 1-week trial to see how much space I take in at least that week before I go and space out all of those weekly dashboards. This first week is essentially going to be my trial run to see how much space my daily logs take up, and then I'm going to use that to appropriately space out the other layouts I'll have in the month. In an A5, I found that my daily logs typically take up about 1 spread to 1.5 spreads, but that might not necessarily be the case as we move into the second half of the year, and into this new journal size. So I'm going to give myself an opportunity to experiment. In terms of timing though, decorating this spread took about 8.5 minutes, though of course that time doesn't include going and putting in all of the second line highlights. I only put them in for the migrated section and for the first day I'm going to be using this spread, and given that I don't know how much space I'm going to need for that Monday, I might end up putting more lines in just for that Monday before I go and put in the lines for the Tuesday and the Wednesday, so on and so forth. With the past few monthly setups, I've definitely been paring back how many layouts I've included, mainly in favor of bringing elements into a weekly view. And that's what I love about a DIY system like this. We can include what we need and leave out the rest. To see how my style has changed across the years though, this playlist is worth checking out. That one has all of my previous July monthly bullet journal setups, so click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.